All right, guys. Hey, my name is Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sehan. I am so excited about this one. This is a new person for me, and I love getting new people and like understanding and like picking their brain and seeing what they do with their work and what have you. But this particular lady I actually found on TikTok. I just started TikTok now. Whatever, some people are very emphatic about one way or another with that whole situation, and I'm just like, you know what, they're following us anyway, they can track us in our TV, so whatever. But anyway, that's a whole different subject. But I found this lady because she was talking about the Schumann, and I'm a big fan. I've been talking about the Schumann for like a couple decades now, and just started following and noticed some things that were going on in her personal endeavors and was really inspired by it. And so I reached out, or she might have actually reached out to me first. And then I was like really, really looking. And then anyway, so she's here today. Her name is Erin Brown, and she has a background of medical. I'm going to let her explain a little bit more about that. But before we get started, I just want to remind everybody to please follow, subscribe, do all the things that help with the algorithm, especially with me being new in the TikTok arena. That it's a big game. It's an algorithm game, and every little bit helps with where other platform this is playing. When you hit a like or a comment or any of that, that really, really helps us out. So and then you get notifications on different things that we're doing, little things, interviews and things that we have. I'm always popping on, giving a little bit of science to this or that, and hopefully that's helpful to you guys. And you can also be a member, and we have a member button on this link too that you can follow and figure out how to do that, where we do personal meetings once a month. There's lots of giveaways, there's discounts on my website, things like that. So without any further ado, Erin, how's it going today?
It's a great day to have a great day. The sun is out, the birds are singing. What a great day. What a great day. I'm so excited to be here with you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I love that you do like the Schumann kind of daily stuff. You also do different kind of readings, which I'm very intrigued about. Um, but the thing I think that like I guess was home for me, or just relatable even more to me, is your new endeavor. You're following your heart or following your dreams. You literally left the medical field
Mm-hmm.
to follow your heart and to really do what gives you energy and what makes you happy and where you find your joy. Can you give us a little bit about, I mean, I know this story, but can you share a little bit? Because I think a lot of people are stuck, and a lot of people are like not knowing what to do and how to take those steps and like trying to figure it all out. I mean, I'm literally like 50 something, and I'm like, what am I going to do when I grow up, sometimes, right? So
Right.
share a little bit about this new endeavor that you have.
Yeah, I'd love to. So, I was in the medical field for over 25 years. For about 20 of those years, I was a nurse, specifically in ophthalmology. I did a lot of surgeries and very science driven. From there, I went to teach at a medical school here in the Chicagoland area. My job was to design high fidelity simulations to help new doctors learn specific techniques, like putting people under for anesthesia or surgeries or anything like that. So I was working with very high tech equipment with brand new doctors, which I have to say was a fascinating job and I absolutely loved it. But what happened was, as I was going through this, I was there for about 3 years and I experienced a spiritual awakening. Up until that time, I was very science driven, very evidence based. I want to see the studies, I want to understand this. Coming up in medicine, we've been taught to analyze everything down to the tiniest little detail. And when my spiritual awakening happened, it was so disruptive to me because I had to go from wanting evidence to trying to have faith. And that is not the same thing, and it's not easy to have faith. So when my awakening happened, I slowly, over time, I started to notice that while I still liked my job, I didn't feel comfortable there anymore. It started to feel, the best way I can explain it is like wearing jeans that are like 2 sizes too small. I can do it, but it's not fun. And I started to notice myself leaving earlier and earlier and earlier every day. But I was really doing the back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I don't know what to do. I gotta stay here because it's comfortable and all that sort of stuff. With my awakening, I started getting into meditation and energy work and that sort of thing. And the people at the university that I worked with all MDs and PhDs. They didn't want to hear anything about my story with energy. They didn't get it. They didn't want to hear it. They didn't understand. And so I was very frustrated with that. And I started looking for an outlet. So I created a brick and mortar wellness center in the Chicagoland area with the intention of creating a space to combine physical and metaphysical medicine to create a total picture of wellness. Because while I do believe in medicine, I don't believe that it should be the end, right? If you are suffering from depression, it can be very hard to see outside of that. So you take the medication to rise above the symptoms. But then you have to do the work to get rid of the depression so you can get off the medication. But here, especially in America, we've gotten very used to take this pill and now you're fine, right? And I didn't like that. So I started creating this wellness center. And as the wellness center grew, I got more and more uncomfortable with the other job, but I was still really hesitant to let go. How is this going to support me? I was so focused on how am I going to make it work that I wasn't really allowing it to work. I was so controlling about every little aspect that it was very frustrating. But what happened was, in my job, there were 2 events that happened that made it abundantly clear that it was time to leave. It doesn't necessarily matter what it was, but the last thing that happened, it was one of those things that it happened. And I'm saying to myself in my head, this isn't real. What is happening? This isn't real. It was like a big sign, time to go, So I went home and I made a plan and I said, okay, if I want to leave this job, what do I need in order to be okay just leaving the job? Not to support myself, but just leaving the job. And I made a very mindful plan for about 2 months. And in those 2 months, I started pulling things together. I started handing over different projects and really rearranging things. And at the end of those 2 months, I had made myself a promise, I'm going to leave this job no matter what, right? End of 2 months come, I go in to give my notice, and I'm telling you, I said, okay, I'm going to give my notice. They did not make one single offer to keep me there.
What?
Not one. And I thought, well, that's confirmation. So I left. But the night that I put in my notice, what I think is so interesting is I had this very vivid dream that I was in a room full of these beautiful paintings, right? Like Picasso's and Monet's, and they were everywhere. And it was just overwhelming with its beauty. But I started to walk closer to one of the paintings and I was like looking to see it, and it fell off the wall, and the wall behind it was full of rot. And as I looked at the rot, all the other paintings started to fall, and it was all rotted all throughout there. And when I woke up, it was like this very clear, this is where you thought you were, but this is where you really were. And I started to recognize all the little things that had been happening to kind of keep me from expanding where I was. And it wasn't necessarily that they were bad people or anything, but working for a large organization like that, it's very hard to move forward. And there was a lot of stuff happening that I was very good with just excusing for whatever reason. Oh, it's hard to do this. Oh, it takes time. Oh, this, oh, that. But for 2 years, I worked outside my job description significantly. I was never given a raise. I was never given a promotion. And every time I asked, they'd say, oh, it's coming. Oh, it's coming. Oh, it's coming. And then when this big event happened, the last sentence of that page that they gave me said, this precludes you from any raises or promotions you may have been considered for. And that was the moment of, okay, time to go. So I think that when you are struggling with the question of should I or shouldn't I, should I or shouldn't I, sometimes these big tower moments have to come forward to force you to go. It's like you're bouncing back and forth. Something may come forward to force you. And when I left my job, I was genuinely worried. Am I going to be able to support myself? Am I going to be able to pay my bills? All these things. But I kind of had to listen to my heart, which was saying, when you work with source or the universe, whatever you want to call it, it's really a trust fall. You have to cross your arms, close your eyes, and just go and trust that you're going to be caught. And I'll tell you, since I left, not one time has my need not been met, not once. And the biggest thing, though, is getting out of my expectations of what I thought it was going to look like, because it has looked completely different than what I thought it would. It took a lot of courage, a lot of belief in myself, and a lot of not listening to everybody around me telling me, oh, it's a bad idea, it's a bad idea, it's a bad idea, and really stepping into that for me to let go. But it was a good solid several months of going back and forth and talking myself out of it. And yes, I'm going to do it. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. No, I'm not. And then eventually it just happened. And here I am. And I got to tell you, when I left, a friend of mine gave me a new journal from the school. And she said, this is where you start your new chapter. And I thought, wow, that's so profound. And I opened that journal and started keeping record of how I felt after I left my job. And when I go back and read those entries now, because it's only been about a month, but when I go back and read those entries, it's totally different than the stuff I used to write when I was at work. Like I would write how satisfied I felt sitting in bed, going to bed for the night. I didn't feel like I was missing anything. I didn't feel like I was trying to keep up with anything. I didn't feel like I was trying to meet some goal that I couldn't attain. I just felt satisfied. I was going to bed happy, and I felt good in the morning when I woke up. I was bouncing out of bed and excited to get my day started. And that has been the biggest gift in all of this. Has nothing to do with financials. I mean, financials help, but the freedom that it has given me to feel about myself and to trust my intuition has been enormous. Enormous. That's worth so much more than anything else. You know, I understand people have bills to pay, but you're sacrificing your health and your love of self to satisfy some goal outside of you. And that's not often going to lead you where you want to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, and I'm listening to you because I think a lot of people are at a crossroads, whether it's relational, maybe it's a relationship that they're in, or it could be a job, or it could be, really anything. And you mentioned, those outer voices, because, dude, it's enough in itself just to have the inner voices, but the outer voices, which my mentor would always say there is no them, and that people will only submit to our lowest common denominator, which, so if we have any fear whatsoever, we basically leak it, and the people start submitting to that, and then they start mirroring that back to you, but it's really you just using them to show you that that's really there. It's
Yes.
like,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
that mental game of like really being true to what your path is, no matter what parents say, family says, because I've been in that situation where I quit school, or I changed careers, or I got out of a relationship. And it's like, especially when it's the people that you really love that are like, this is a terrible idea, like, how did you deal with that?
So one of the biggest gifts I gave myself was allowing myself to stop thinking of my ego as evil, right? So the human mind, your ego's job is to protect you, to keep you safe, to keep you comfortable, to make sure you're alive, right? And my ego was all in my head about don't leave this job, don't leave this job. It's secure, it's secure. So I stopped looking at my ego as evil and just as a very protective mama bear. And it was very much coming to peace with that helped me more than anybody else around me. With my mom, her big thing was, you did all this schooling and now you're going to leave and blah. And I'm like, right, but I didn't waste any of that. All of that taught me something, but it's all led me where I am. It's not like I want to stay there. Change is the only thing that helps you grow. And after a while, when I would try to talk to people about it and they didn't understand, I had to put up a 3-strike rule. If I try to talk to you about this and I bring it up 3 different ways, and you can't hear me all 3 ways, we're changing the subject, we're getting off of it, because you're not going to hear me no matter what I say. And it's not a matter of not hearing you, it's a matter of not hearing you. Because people can only hear you in their heart from where they are. And if they are somewhere that they feel insecure or like they can't pay their bills, that's how they're going to see you where you are. So I had to recognize that. I had to stop looking at my ego as an evil, nasty thing that's trying to keep me stuck, and rather look at it like a very protective mama bear. And it's going to be okay. I'm just trying something new. I'm just getting through this. But with other people in my life, I started making declarations instead of having discussions. And that was a big thing. I told my mom, I said, this is what I'm going to do. And she started in. I said, you know what? I love you, but I'm not interested. I'm not interested. If I want to talk to you, but we're not going to talk about this. And a lot of people don't like that, but I had to put that boundary there, because for me, I was tired of feeling bad about how I felt, like I was feeling guilty because I wanted to follow my dreams, and I didn't like that. So putting in that rule of, I'm going to bring it up 3 times. If you can't hear me all 3 times, that's okay. I'm not going to hate you for that, but we're going to change subject. And I'm not going to value an opinion of someone who spent their whole life living in the same job, right? You know, if someone has never made a change, if someone has never tried to follow their dream, if someone has never done anything outside their comfort zone, I don't feel like they have a lot of perspective to offer me, you know? So I started listening more to myself and the people I did know around me who were doing those things. I kind of shifted my friend group a little bit, you know? It's very easy when you have friends that you get around that all they want to do about is complain or gossip or stuff. It's very easy to get trapped in that, and it really drags you down. So I had to adjust my friend group. I had to change a lot of stuff, but it was all active changes that I made myself to help myself feel better with the choice.
Do you still have your wellness center?
I do.
Okay, cool. That is so
Yeah, so we do energy work there, and we sell crystals and all this stuff. But the big thing there is energy work. My partner and I do 2 different types of energy work, and we make a complete circle. The way I explain it is, I'm kind of like the primary care doctor. I go in, I'm going to look at all of your chakras. I'm going to give you an overview of how they feel. I'm going to give you some insight on some things that are out of balance. And then you go to my business partner, and she's like the specialist. She takes everything that just came to the surface and she'll go and pull that one thing out. She goes, okay, we're going to work on this thing. So we work on that. Then you come back, you get your whole chakras adjusted, and then same thing again. And it's been extremely successful with a lot of patients. And it's been very rewarding to, like, this morning right before I came on, I got a text from somebody that said I just put in my 2 weeks notice, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, because she's finally found her passion, and she's finally found the courage to follow it. So it was just the idea of learning to work with the people around me instead of fighting against everything so hard. That was a big part of it.
Well, I'm just I'm so inspired by you personally, and I know a lot of us in the medical field have kind of, had to make those choices of switching things and, doing things different. And, we're in the process. I've had a wellness center as well, and it flooded, and we're actually starting over and going back to doing something concrete in person as well as this now. And it's been a little bit scary, but, because I've done online and conference speaking for 20 years. So it's been like just teaching and writing books and doing stuff. And so seeing patients in person is going to be interesting and fun. And I'm really excited about it. I'm partnering with someone too, but you were a big part of that, because it's always been a little bit there. And then I had a couple things like you were talking about that are just like boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, dude, like, I guess this is the path, but I know you mentioned crystals, and of course, I'm a big crystal person, and I sent you a box because I wanted you to play around with it. And I was curious about what you picked. You picked tourmaline, right?
I did. Yep.
Yeah. So did that resonate with you, and like, especially your empathic everything? And
it did. There's a lot in doing this. There's a lot of people that want to challenge me, right? How do you know this works? How do you know it's not just the placebo effect? Especially in my group of friends, because I have so many MDs, PhDs that I kind of know from work. There was always these challenges of how do you know? How do you know? And tourmaline for me, I actually have a piece over here on my desk. It helps me to let go of that, like, I don't know how to explain it. It feels like static around me. When I have tourmaline with me, it's like it creates a space for the static to not get so close to me. Static for me is kind of like all the questions and vibrations of people not understanding. And what tourmaline tends to do for me is create a space where it's not right up against me. It's a little bit farther out, and I get a little bit less anxiety and a little bit less, feeling from it. So I'm a big fan of tourmaline.
That is so cool. That's definitely one of my favorites too. I love that. I love smoky quartz. I love pink quartz or rose quartz. I love labradorite is probably my all-time like absolute favorite. But
I wear a piece of moldavite. It's really, really small, but moldavite. So I'll tell you, not every crystal affects me. The ones that do affect me profoundly affect me, but moldavite is a whole nother level for me. Moldavite for me is like putting a battery into my energy, and it will be a change. It will be a change maker for me. So when I start wearing my moldavite, it's usually because I feel something in my energy that needs to go, like I'm hanging on to something. This brings it to the surface for me, forces me to recognize it, and then I can work to let it go. Moldavite is the one that I'm most drawn to. When I went through my awakening, this is kind of a fun story. When I went through my awakening, I went to Florida to visit my mom, and I ran into some people that took me to this huge crystals place. This is before I knew anything about crystals. I was just in that state of what is happening to me, so they took me to this crystal store. There was a piece of moldavite there, and I was drawn to it, and I went to pick it up. And when I picked it up, my hands seized up around it. Like the energy was so strong, my hands seized up, and I was going, ah, like this. And my friend, she grabbed this big thing of Florida water and dumped it over my hands, and it like let it release from my hands. No other crystal has ever been that strong when I got it. Like my hands contracted. I could not put it down, and it hurt because it was so big, I think. And my energy wasn't quite ready for it. And Florida water literally let me let go of it. But that was my introduction to crystals. Up until then, as someone in medicine, I didn't, I thought crystals, oh, they're pretty, like I didn't really pay attention to them. But that was my big introduction to these are real, this works, especially for me coming from a meteorite. I think it's something purposeful for me. But crystals have changed the way I look at things. I started watching more mindful television. Like I watch Gaia. I don't watch a lot of TV to begin with, but I do watch Gaia TV. And I have found all these shows that talk about how the crystals form and where they come from and what they do. And it was like opening a whole new realm of medicine to me. It's like the idea, again, that we only know half the story. We've only been given half the story. We are not just people. We're souls having a people experience. You can't forget the other half of you, otherwise you're not treating the whole piece.
Yes. Yeah. And these guys are alive. I mean, they have their frequency. I mean, you can test it. They have a piezo effect, especially quartz is the highest. I mean, for the people who are science people or the religious people or whatever, who are just like, oh no, this is so bad. It's like, dude, pick up some real science and look at it. Look at the real stuff here, because I feel like it has been a little bit hidden. But I mean, Tesla is the biggest, scientist that one of the big ones that I look up to. And, he went on and on about crystals. And for people who are like, oh, it's so bad. It's like, okay, well, do you have a cell phone? Do you have a computer? Do you have an Apple Watch? Are you using anything medical? For all the special medical people who are like, oh, crystals, it's like, do you know you're using them already every day, like in everything that you do, and like, but you're against them. It's like, okay, give up your phone,
Right, exactly. One of my favorite sayings in the whole world is, it's only science fiction till it's not. Right?
Ooh,
Think of it this way. If you had handed your great-grandmother a cell phone, she would have passed out and burned you at the stake as a witch, right? Because that would have been alien technology to her. But here we are, all of us carrying it in our pocket. Back to the Future, Marty McFly got fired over FaceTime. And every one of us were like, oh, that's so weird. And here we are, everybody's on FaceTime. It's only science fiction till it's not. It just takes time for physical science to catch up with metaphysical science, because metaphysical science does not have the drag of disbelief behind it. Metaphysical science is up here to me rather than down here. Physical science is about proof. It's about, show me the results, all that stuff. Metaphysical science is about faith, about trust, about leaning into what feels good instead of what, someone else tells you should feel good. And when we bring those together, it really makes a whole picture.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about when I first I have a Zyto. I don't really use it as much because I have biofeedback now, where Zyto will only do diagnostics. Biofeedback does diagnostics and it sends back frequencies to start the ball rolling. But I did a seminar in Florida, actually, and brought my Zyto and had publicized that I was going to be having that to do readings or sessions with people to just find out where they are physically, mentally, spiritually. It goes into hormones, it goes into everything. And literally I had like 3 or 4 churches like completely come out like against me showing up in Florida. And they were saying this is the devil. I mean, this is only like a few years ago, like maybe 7 or 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I was like banned and like outed, and this is before canceling was popular. And I was like, it's like, have you ever had an x-ray? I
Right.
mean, that's not bad. An MRI is not bad. This is literally just showing me what's going on with your physical body at like an X-ray, but it was spooky to them for some reason. It's like, wow. But if everybody knew what was really out there that they haven't even let us have, it would probably blow some minds. But anyway, but that's
Absolutely. I mean, something that you talk about in your book is about how everything has a vibration, everything has a frequency, even diseases, everything. So if your vibration rises above the level of those diseases, they cannot abide in your body and they will not be there. You can take care of yourself. You don't need someone else to heal you. You just need someone to show you how to do it, right? Like it's that sort of feeling. Something that shocks people. Okay, my awakening was sparked by a misdiagnosis of a very serious illness that I was treated for 2 years. It's called APS, antiphospholipid syndrome. And what it is the red blood cells are stripped of their protein layer and it makes them sticky. So you clot. And so I had to take very, very high doses of warfarin injected twice a day into my body and for 2 years. Now, something looking back that I should have paid attention to, right, is I was labeled as warfarin resistant. So my levels had to be so high because my body was not responding to lower levels of Coumadin when I was taking it, warfarin Coumadin when I was taking it. So they kept upping and upping and upping until finally it was so high they couldn't go anymore. But my hair started falling out. I was very sick. I felt terrible. All of these things.
sorry.
COVID happened, right? I get sent home because you can't teach people how to suture over FaceTime. It's really hard. So I got sent home from the university. And one day I'm sitting there and I'm like, I got nothing to do. I'm going to look at the library. So I go into the school library and start researching this disease. And in my research, I started to look at all the criteria that's required for this diagnosis. And I noticed there was a test that was in there that I didn't remember having done. So I went to my specialist, got all my records, and as a nurse, I sat down with my records and my highlighter and started going through and highlighting all the tests and everything I had done. And that test was not in there. I took all the literature, I go to my specialist and I said, here, I think there's something wrong. And I'll tell you, that specialist looked me in my face and he said, you are the patient. I am the doctor. You listen to me. You're going to do what I tell you to do or you're going to die. That's literally what he told me.
Oh
As someone who teaches brand new doctors how to be doctors, I was like, oh, no, we're not doing this. You work for me. So I fired him as my doctor. I went back to my primary care doctor, who's a wonderful man. And I took all the information to him and he listened and he said, okay, you know what? I'm sure the test was done. Let's go through your notes together. And for an hour, he sat there with me going through it. And that never happens with doctors. He couldn't find the test. He said, you know what? I'm going to reorder it. I'm sure it's fine. We order the test. I go get it done. The next day, he called me on the phone. I could hear it in his voice. He said, I need you to immediately discontinue this medication and I need you to come to the hospital so I can run some tests on you because there is no study to show what taking this medication that you did not need at this high level for 2 years will do to your body. And I said, wait, what? I don't need it? He said, no, you don't have this disease. You do not have it. You don't meet the criteria. And in that moment, my entire identity crashed because I had allowed myself to become the disease. Instead of saying I had it, I identified totally as a disease.
wow.
When you take that away, I had nothing left. And it sent me down into this very dark hole of feeling like I had to call everybody I knew and apologize. I thought I had to call my mom and apologize, like all these things. My husband one day finally said, listen, why do you feel like you have to apologize? You didn't make this diagnosis. You actually saved yourself. So let's focus on that side of it. So when I shift my focus, that's when things started to lighten up. My daughter came in one day and she said, have you ever tried meditation? And of course I was like, no, that doesn't work. But she gave me a guided meditation. And when I did it, my world changed. I was feeling energy zapping all through my body. My earphones started shocking me in my ears. I had to jerk them out of my ears. My light in the closet started to flicker. All kinds of stuff started happening. I was seeing color explosion. It blew my mind. That was the beginning, but it was me recognizing that something wasn't right and actually following the path of that led me to the discovery. I would have, if COVID had not happened, I probably honestly would have been perfectly fine with going along with what the doctor was telling me, because as someone who teaches new doctors, I have been told and been taught to trust them implicitly. They know everything. But they don't know everything. While many doctors are an expert on a disease, they are never going to be an expert on you. You know what's best for you always. And they can offer support and suggestions. But I told every student I ever had, I hope that if you choose not to listen to your patient, that they fire you. I really do, because you need to listen to your patient. If you were to just, like, as someone who has chronic migraines, when I go to see a doctor, if they ask me about my symptoms, I can tell you how often, what works, what doesn't work, the tests I had, when they were done, what they said, all that. You can get all of that from me. You don't have to repeat that and spend thousands and thousands of dollars on stuff if you just listen to your patients. So learning to listen to myself after saying that to my students forever was a big thing. Like, oh, now I have to do what I say. Oh, okay. Like, oh, but that changed my life, that misdiagnosis. And I'm never going to regret that it happened, because it literally shifted everything for me.
That's awesome. And that's just profound. And yeah, most doctors won't stay with you. That's why my doctors, I was with Dr. David Stewart, who's now passed, Gary Young, who's now passed, and also still with Dr. Lucky, who, I mean, his regular appointments, especially your first time, could be 4 to 6 hours. I mean, he literally goes through, and he's such a great person to look up to. And one of the reasons why I became a doctor is just because of his expertise and his willingness to listen and to really look at all the things.
Yeah,
Can't believe that was missed, but that's very common,
it
unfortunately,
is very common.
for
And
things to be misdiagnosed or over medicated. I mean, a lot of people that come to me are on 20, 30 medicines, and I have a doctor here and that's been trying to get me to come over to her center. And her big thing is too, is they come to her and she's like, what are you on this for? And most of the time people don't even know why they're
yeah,
taking what they're taking. They're just following orders
yes,
and doing whatever. And you know what else is, Dr. Lucky has seen this many times, and I haven't personally seen it yet, but he'll get people, he gets the people who are like literally on death's door. And if they're given any kind of you have 6 months or whatever, cancel clear, or some sort of time, that he can get them completely cleared. And I've actually had people completely cleared, and then they will still die on that day, because it's that agreement, the power of loyalty contracts, and looking
mm-hmm.
up to someone who's like apparently over them, and not, but they're not over, it's just
Right.
our ideas, or people's ideas at times. But anyway, we have just a few minutes left, and I wanted you to talk about, how did you find the Schumann, and how did you get on that path with the Schumann? Because
So
like
that's really,
my heart.
it was a really fun story. So I came across a video on TikTok one day, someone doing a Schumann report, and everything they were saying, I'm like, well, I feel that and I feel that. So I got the app and I started to track how I felt versus what was on the graph. And because I'm in medicine and I do research, that's what I do, right? So I started keeping track and I started to notice patterns. And when I started to notice those patterns, I thought, well, maybe there's something here, right? So every day I would wake up and check in with my body. Where am I feeling this? Where am I feeling this? Look at the graph and correlate it to where on the graph it was showing up. Then I would go into meditation and just sit with the intention of asking for clarity. What's going on with this? And it slowly started to trickle in. The thing with the Schumann that I really want people to understand is, I'm not debating where the energy comes from. I understand where the energy comes from. It comes from the sun, it comes from electrical storms, but I want you to look beyond that. Where did the sun come from? The sun comes from source, right? So all this energy coming from the sun is coming from source. It's a vibration that gets trapped in our ionosphere and kind of bounces around. As vibrational beings, it is only logical to me to think that a heavy dose of vibration coming into the earth would affect you as a vibrational being. Why wouldn't it? So I'm not here to debate the cause of the energy. I'm here to tell you that there's an effect that we're not looking at, right? It's not about, it's coming from the sun, that's all it is. No, that affects you as a human being. It just was a lot of time of matching up how I felt with what I saw. And eventually I just thought, you know what? I cannot be the only person that feels this. And I took a chance and I just put it out there. And all of a sudden I got all these people, oh my gosh, that's exactly how I feel. I am so glad you feel it too. That validation, that commonality that you find with people really takes the load off of feeling alone. And then you start to get this group of people that kind of forms. Yes, I feel this. Yes, I feel this. And it doesn't, the way it affects me doesn't always resonate with everybody, but I'm not going to change what I say to kind of placate to other people. I'm here to offer the truth of how it affects me. You can take it or leave it. I'm not here to have a discussion. I'm here to give a declaration. So that's
Yeah.
how it, I'm not here to prove anything to you. I don't need to, and something that I heard somebody said the other day, and I don't remember who it was, but they said, when you have faith in something, if you feel like you have to convince somebody to believe in your faith, you don't have faith in that, because you're trying to convince yourself by talking about it. I have faith in what I understand. I know what I feel is true for me. I don't need to debate it with you. You can take it or leave it, and sitting in that has been very freeing for me, because there's a lot of people that want to argue about it, I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah, especially online. I have even like people from like high school or college or way back who have been confrontational and just said something, whatever with their, instead of like picking up the phone and calling me or whatever. And what's so funny is my husband laughs at me because I will call those people. I will literally call them, or if I don't even know them, if you put a comment on there and you can't explain it or whatever, if you're just being mean or whatever, I will literally call that person in Messenger, and then they don't call back. And
Right.
I'll sit there and I'll text them and I'll say, hey, I called you. I saw your comment. I'd love to talk to you about it. I'm not being confrontational. I'm being like exploratory. I'm wanting to have a conversation, and not in a debate online where there's all this back and forth and you're bringing all these other people. But I want to get to know, like, what is the person, where is this person coming from, whatever, and have an adult, mature conversation.
Right.
And 100% of the time, they will not call me back. And I'll even put like, hey, I called you. Is everything okay? I'd love to have a chat, blah, blah, blah. Nothing. Completely ghosting, completely like zero. It's like they're so courageous when they're armchair quarterback, whatever, couch potato, whatever, sitting in front of the computer. But when it comes down to actually, like, they would never say that to your face. And then like, or even on a phone call, apparently. And it's just like, dude, I'm not like trying to like be an asshole. I just want to talk to you. It's like, can you explain your comment? But Brian laughs at me because he's like, oh crap. She was like, he'll see a comment and he'll say, I know she's going to call on that one. But what do you do with that kind of stuff? Because especially when it gets in your feed, it's like, I'm not wanting a big like argument in my page. Or it's like, you know what, if you want to argue or whatever, like, can you just go somewhere else? Because this is like me and what I'm putting. If you don't like it, you can scroll. Like, you don't have to, what do you do?
So if someone posts an actual question, I'm happy to respond. If someone posts something that's just controversial or just trying to get attention, and I think a lot of it is trying to get attention or trying to rile you up, I don't respond. I don't even acknowledge, because I used to fight with those people. I used to try to convince them. And I started to realize that if you get in a conversation with a right fighter, it doesn't matter what you say. They're literally doing this. So I'm just wasting my energy trying to talk to somebody who doesn't want to hear me. The last conversation I had like that, someone said to me, well, this is just placebo effect. And I said, so what? Even if it is just placebo effect, it's working. Why do you care? Why do you care? If it's working, it's working. And they couldn't answer that. And so that was my realization moment. You know what? All I'm doing is frustrating myself and making myself feel bad. I'm gonna drop this. I'm not gonna have this conversation. If you have an actual question and you post it, I will absolutely get back to you. I'm happy. I'm a teacher by trade. I love teaching.
Me too.
So I want to talk to you, but I'm not going to debate you. I'm not trying to convince you. That's not my job. I'm not here to wake you up. I'm not here to convince you. I'm just here to give you a flashlight on your path so you can see where you're going. I'm not here to hold your hand and force you down the road,
Yeah, totally.
I'm happy to leave you where you are,
Yeah. No, I present information, and if people like it, don't. I try to stay very neutral about it, although sometimes I can get like, oh man, it's like, why don't, but that's just ego. If I'm worried about them thinking about me, or needing them to believe me or whatever, that's not personal. It's just, but sometimes I have taken it personal, and I try to, shelf that. But
that's just the human side of us, right? You're human with sticking out a little bit. That's all. You just got to pull it back. That's all.
Yeah.
It's
And I think too, sometimes people who make these comments, like, I don't think they think it through. Maybe they're being reactive, or or they look at someone who has like a zillion followers or whatever, and they don't realize like they have like a life too, and kids and different things, and people see all that, and they kind of like maybe put that like you're not a real person, and it's like everybody's real. Like
yes, it's like watching someone on TV, right? You feel like you know these people because we're sharing parts of our lives, but you don't know anything about me other than what I'm sharing with you, right? Um, I just, for me, I'm very comfortable with what I believe and what I understand to be true. So much so that I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to offer the truth the way I understand it. I also understand that that's not going to resonate with everybody, and that's okay. But I'm not going to fight with you to bring you here. I'm not going to try to keep you from drowning. If you're drowning and you want to drown, fine. You do you. But
yes,
I'm not going to force you because I believe enough in what I know to be true that I don't need to do that anymore. And that is a huge piece, a huge feeling of peace that comes over me when I see those comments. I still will like the comment, like heart the comment. And sometimes I'll say, I love that for you, that
I
sort of
love
thing.
that
But
for
I
you.
don't.
Bless your heart.
Right? I love that for you, but
I love that for you. I'm totally stealing that. I love that.
I don't engage beyond that because they're not listening anyway. 90% of the time, they're not listening anyway. If it's a genuine question, you can usually tell because it's phrased in such a way, hey, can you explain blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, yeah. You
Instead
can
of
tell the
attacking, they're
vibration.
asking.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you can feel it. If someone's just being like a jerk, or if someone's actually wanting to learn, you could tell
Right.
sometimes. But well, tell us where we can find you. I know I got to get, and you got to get, and we got other interviews and different things to go. But like for everybody watching, I know she's on TikTok, she's on Instagram. Where else are you, or where can
Um,
people find you?
I
Your
am on
website?
YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, all under the handle at Consciously Erin. Please be mindful because there's about 50 scam accounts with my name on it. It drives me crazy, but I can't do anything about it. So just be diligent in your research. I have over 23,000 followers, so make sure it's the right account. On YouTube, it's Consciously Erin. I put my Schumann videos up there, but I also host classes on there. I'm doing one class called Professor Brown Breaks It Down, where every Monday we are talking about some new energy element. Like right now, we're going through the chakras. We've done the root and the sacral. We'll do solar plexus next, where it's an hour of a lecture that I've created. And then we have an interactive discussion. If you have a question about what we talked about, I want to bring it up. I want to answer that. And I'm getting ready to start a shadow club where we're going to do guided shadow work together. So to help you get through this difficult thing, because shadow work is hard. And using a curriculum and having someone who can guide you through it can be very helpful. So all of that's on YouTube, but those are the three main places that you can find me. My wellness center is located in Schaumburg, Illinois. It's called the Conscious Chrysalis. And it's, a place where you can come and just be who you are. We have a library of books that are all for borrowing. You don't have to buy them, because when I had my awakening, I literally bought every book I could find because I thought I needed it. So I'm trying to keep somebody from doing that. So multiple places you can find me, but TikTok, I'm live Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. And then YouTube every Monday, you can find me for both classes.
Awesome. Well, I hope you guys will do your due diligence and check out all of her different things. She's got a lot of cool things that she's offering in her services, whether it's in person and or online. And so you don't even have to like live in Chicago. You can go check her out. And
yep. Happy to work with you.
Yes. So thank you guys. Thank you everybody who's watching. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate it.
Yes, and you guys can find me at drsharnael.com. I'm definitely on Instagram, Facebook, now TikTok, Twitter. Well, it's not Twitter anymore, X, and YouTube. And we are here every Thursday. We just now changed the times to 7 p.m. so that hopefully will accommodate some people who are working and what have you. But we love you guys, and definitely hit that subscribe, leave your comments, any questions you might have, please put them in here. I love looking at the questions and answering and doing whatever I can to help. And I'm sure Erin will jump on here too and check out to see if you guys have any questions for her. And I look forward to seeing you guys next, and I'll see you around. Erin, thank you so much for everything, and bless
you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Take care. All right. Bye, guys.